Hello and welcome to another Built for This conversation. My name is Shelly Stevens. This is my colleague Wynn Morgan, and we're speaking today to Erika Bugbee. And as we've been talking about in this series, we're living in exceptional times that call for exceptional conversations, which is what we're trying to do here. And Erika has been so generous to give us her time to talk about families and kids at home and parents and how they're dealing with the situation currently. And we're just going to dive right into that and see what she's seen around this area. She works also with families. And so Erika, I'm just going to hand over the word to you and let you introduce yourself and see what you have to say.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. So my name is Erika Bugbee. I'm the founder of Erika Bugbee Coaching, and I've been working with teenagers, specializing in teenagers and their parents for 20 years. I ended up specializing in that because I got all of the teenagers in our practice. I was part of a Pransky Associates before this, another organization that does what I do, and I just ended up relating to teenagers and relating to their parents that are pulling their hair out. Partly, I think, because I was not a very pleasant teenager, so I can see it without the judgment and the irritation. Mm. One of the things that I do is I do a lot of video coaching, and so I've been working with parents primarily. They're the ones that are having a hard time with this through this process, and so I was going to share what I'm seeing parents are up against the most right now. With this virus and being quarantined and stuck in a house in close quarters and not having anywhere to escape to. So one of the things that I think makes it particularly difficult is that, for a lot of people, they're sort of up against the things that are hard for them anyway. So for the people that normally don't like to be in the house or like to be busy, they're having to learn how to have not as much activity to be involved in. They can't go out and do, and so we're all kind of up against our weak points times 10 right now, which I find is a really good opportunity. And so, but one of the things that I've noticed that I think has, for the parents that have been able to find some grace and some composure and grow through all of this, is something I'll point to, actually, that I heard from a business leader, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, that I worked with. And, after I have in-person programs, and I think it was our third or fourth day, it was a 4-day program. I think it might've been the last morning. He came in, he said, it's funny, I've been this business leader. He's really, really successful. He's trained a whole bunch of people, mentored people, and he's really good at what he does. He's a property development. And he said, the value he's gotten from his experience, because all the people under him say, is it just knowledge? Like, I want to be able to do as well as you do. And he said, it's funny, my experience hasn't brought me, it's not the knowledge that's helped me. It's, I've learned how to overlook things. And there's a lot of stuff I used to pay attention to and think about that I don't. And so my mind isn't cluttered. I've learned how to let a lot of stuff go and how to be picky about what I have on my mind and think about. And that, he didn't get clear on that until he came out and kind of looked at things in the big picture, but that's what he went back and essentially passed on to his organization, and his numbers went up enormously, even in the people that were just showing properties and the receptionists. And that's what I want to talk about here. Is one of the things that's happening is we're up against challenges like being stuck around people we don't like, or even though they might be your teenagers and you love them, you might not like them. And, if we're honest, there's times where we don't. And I have 2 teenagers, love them to death, but there's times where I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I raised that. or people. So you're sort of up against, you're having a lot thrown at you that makes you really uncomfortable or that you react to and struggle with. And one of the things is that there's a lot of things in the landscape right now that you can't change and influence, but you do have a huge amount of say in terms of where you put your energy and what you let go of and what you lean into. And that's what's made the biggest difference for me as a parent going through this, and as somebody who's had to keep a business alive, is so I'll give you an example here. So
Yeah.
like in terms of how you work, there's a lot of things you can't do that you used to be able to do. And like I have a woman that owns a perfume shop, kind of a boutique perfume shop in Portland, Oregon. And she's like, nobody can come into my store. It's fragrance. Like you can't do it virtually. But she realized, oh, I can, when she essentially let go of what she can't do, and what was happening to her finances and how can I keep the store, she realized, she woke up one morning and she said, I can sell little samplers. She's into wine, and you know how they have flights of wine where you can get like 5 or 6 different kinds. She said, I could do flights of perfume. I have all these samples. I just give them away. She said, I could sell little packages of flights. And so she said, I don't know if people are going to be buying, but it's something that costs less. And it's so interesting. I talked to her one morning and she said, all I've been doing is filling orders. So it's gotten, all of a sudden, she's had all this interest. She said, oh, I just have to, people are spending. I just have to ask myself, what are they interested in? How can I, and that was something that people do in their business lives fairly well, is that they're able to get out of the fear of what am I going to, my numbers don't look the same. The landscape has changed, but to look at, well, what can I do? And look to your creativity. And that's where people can do that in their jobs when they come up against something they don't do as well at home. And that's something that I want to highlight. It's just as easy to do at home. And let me show you what that looks like.
Yeah.
So one of the parents that I'm working with is she works on political campaigns. They live in Washington, D.C. Her whole life is social change and changing the political landscape. She's like, now we need this more than ever. And she's stuck at home with her daughter, who's 17, and is into watching makeup video tutorials, getting a tan, sleeping, and watching reality shows. It just, no interest in politics, no interest in social change. And the mom is essentially kind of is struggling with that. She feels like, this is why our country is struggling the way it is. And it's right in her face now. Yeah. And she, what was so interesting is after a few conversations, she said, I essentially don't like what I'm seeing in my kid. And she's 17. I can't change that. And I don't want to live like this. I can't do it. She just is disheartened and kind of bummed out. It's like, how is our country going to survive? How's the world going to survive? These are our leaders, our future leaders. So anyway, she left that conversation and we had a conversation about the value of seeing opportunity, the way she's seeing it in her work. And what happened is, it's interesting. She came back and she said, one of the things I suggested is, well, why don't you look at her the way that you look at a politician? That there's a lot of features about them that are maybe unconventional or that don't line up with your value system or maybe other people's value system, but there's something inside them. There are things in there that you draw out. That's your job. And that's what happened. She came back and she said, first of all, she's so comfortable in front of a camera. I didn't know this, but she has her own YouTube channel. She samples, she buys makeup, she orders it online, she tries it, and she talks about it. And she's like thousands of followers, and she's so comfortable in front of the camera. And she said, the first thing I did is I thought, God, she could just channel that into politics and be like a social leader. And she said, but I know what you're going to say. I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be getting to know her. And she said, I found, first of all, she found they watched it's one reality show. I think it's America's Top Model or one of these shows that the mom was really disgusted by. She said, it's actually, I was surprised there's substance in it and there's meaning in it. In that world, I didn't think there was any. And there's that show I found kind of captivating. It was like a guilty pleasure. And it's like we started watching that together. It's really the only time we spend time together. And I actually look forward to it. And I think she tolerates it, watching it with me, but she's willing to. She says, so there's this part of our relationship that's growing. And one of the things that I thought was so cool about that is that there's something that points to in a mom like that, where she's able to, there's two things really, to see the difference. There's thinking about limitation.
Yeah.
And then there's looking in terms of opportunity. And she saw that. She was all limitation about her kid. She was all limitation about, what am I going to do on the weekends? We only do well as a family when we're out. And I only do well when I'm out. I do not do well at home. I don't like downtime. And it took, I think, 4 conversations for her to even be interested in what I was pointing to. But to see there is opportunity here.
Yeah.
And you can't take my word for it. Because she said, frankly, I didn't buy it. I was like, yeah, whatever. Maybe there's opportunity for you. This is not opportunity. This is time that I'm not out there changing the world. But once she settled into seeing, oh, I can learn about my daughter the way that I learn about political leaders. And I can get interested and essentially get over myself. Yeah. And get interested in this show that I thought had no substance, in this whole industry, which I'd completely written off. And all of a sudden I'm seeing my daughter has talent and she's passionate, and I was proud of her for being into a show that has substance. I thought she had no substance. And she said, shame on me. Essentially, I was really arrogant. And I was walking around that way. And I was thinking that my kids would be better off if they were more like me. Yeah. And so for her, being able to essentially let go of the kind of thinking, the path of, I'm limited, here's what I can't do, here's the kind of kid I don't have, here's the kind of life I don't have. To let go of that and get interested in feeling more open and seeing what else there is that can bring you someplace. That fork in the road, as she took the opportunity fork in the road and had more respect for the feeling of openness, what happened is she found the other ability that I want to point to that we're built with, is that when people get open, enthusiasm comes out of us. It just comes out. So when she was open to political leaders, she had all this enthusiasm. It was not hard to grow to like them and to find things about them that she admired and was inspired by. It didn't matter who the person was. And as soon as she got open to her own daughter, all this enthusiasm came out. She found it was really easy to like her. She just had to sit there. She didn't have to talk herself into it. She thought, oh, I have to positive think about her. I'm going to lie to myself. She said, it's so funny. I just got out of my cynicism, suspended judgment, and then got to know her. And that ability is in us. So, and we're using it right now. People are finding ways of being at home and finding an enthusiasm for things like cooking and yard work and puzzles and projects. People are finding a love of reading, and they're getting out of a lot of the thinking of, well, what's wrong with this world? A lot of people are trying not to obsess about the news and finding, let me just immerse myself in my life and get more present in my life. And enthusiasm is what ends up coming out. for people. And when you bring enthusiasm and you hang out with people in your family, your relationship goes from essentially being two-dimensional, something that you tolerate, to being three-dimensional, having life breathed into it. And it doesn't matter who the other people are. And that, it's surprised a lot of parents. I think for a lot of the people that thought they couldn't be quarantined for months on end, what they found is there's things I'm actually excited, even though there's only 6 things I can do with my time. I'm finding my level of contentment once I got past the freak out. I'm really surprised. And that, to me, that enthusiasm, it doesn't seem like it's a very profound thing, but it's very profound in the sense that it doesn't really matter what your circumstances are. There's just as much passion and contentment and love and fondness and aliveness available in those 6 things and in this seemingly unlikable kid as in anything that you handpick. Because we're built to be enthusiastic, and we're built to be able to be open to what there is in the landscape that we can focus on and get excited about. And I don't, not everybody's seeing it. Maybe it's taking more time, but that's in the cards. It's just, how long is it going to take people to get over themselves and throw out all their old plans and show up to the landscape they have and say, just like that woman that owned the perfume shop, what is there here? What is here that I can build on? What do I understand? What can I see? What possibilities? And to hang out in that state of openness until you see something. And one of the things that I've been doing, I watched this more foreign films and shows than I normally would, because I really don't like reading. But I've watched this series that I'm hooked on right now called My Brilliant Friend. If anybody's seen it, it's
never heard of it.
Oh my God, it's fantastic. If it's your kind of thing. Anyway, it's set in Italy, in Naples, and all the actors are local. They wanted people that speak this particular dialect. Anyway, one of the comments in there's just an 11-year-old girl who's essentially, she's brilliant. And she writes these stories that are just talented beyond her age. And her friend is like, how do you do that? It was really sweet in this conversation. And she's 11. And she said, I open up the pail and the words come out. And it does make it sound really easy, but that's what enthusiasm is this girl, if you look at her, she's all enthusiasm. And everything that she thinks about things in a way, she's interested in stories. She's interested in where things go or where something can go in her mind. And that's what happens when, the 3 of us are with somebody that we're into, or we're doing something we're into doing, even if it looks boring. Like, I couldn't imagine why anybody was ever interested in gardening when I was a teenager. It was like the stupidest activity I've ever, there's nothing, like, you didn't even grow that. Like, Mother Nature grew that. Like, you just stood there. I was just disgusted, but but it's so funny to think, you show up with some interest and some openness, and you find all this enthusiasm comes out, and that's the feeling people are looking for. And they think their life has to be set up in a certain way. And we're pointing, the 3 of us are pointing people to, no, it's in the cards, no matter what your circumstances, no matter what your kids, no matter what the landscape looks like. And that's what anchors us, is that ability, one, to see the difference between limitation, be more interested in opportunity than limitation, and to have a respect for what enthusiasm feels like, so that you can invite that into your life and it will carry you really through anything. So the things people are learning now, whatever you learn about this, that you're essentially forced to because you're stuck in this strange situation, the things you're up against, I promise you were up against them before this quarantine situation. We all are up against our biggest weaknesses. Whatever you see about it in any of these videos is going to change the rest of your life and the way you live your everyday life. So you're onto something here. If you can hang in there and look for where the enthusiasm and the growth is for you, you'll get to take that with you.
Wow. A very profound and simple message.
Yeah. Does that making sense? Is there anything
Well, it does to me. Charlie, any question that
Yeah,
you'd love Erika to get into?
No, I just could really relate to what you were talking about. There's a friend of mine who doesn't have a car, and during this crisis, I've been driving him some places to go shopping for his kids. I don't have children. He has 4, and his youngest son is 12. And he was telling me at the beginning, he's sitting in front of the computer all day, and he's playing these horrendous, violent video games, and he doesn't want to go outside. I'm just worried he's going to spend the whole time during this school shutdown, even though he's supposed to be learning, just playing video games and becoming a zombie essentially. And every time I would see him when I would go to help out with something, he did look a bit pale and drained, like he'd just been sitting too long. and so we came up with this kind of save him plan, like we're going to get him out so and so many times a day. And I brought my bike over, and we were going to go biking and walking, and I brought the dog because he liked the dog. And it lasted for about, I don't know, 5 days. And then at some point he just went on strike, and he was just like, you guys might want to go out, go do that, but just, right. I'd rather stay here. And we would be talking and having these conversations about, this is just, what are we going to do? And he can't motivate him anymore to go out. And yesterday I did a pickup, and they wanted to go to the hardware store, which are still open in Germany where we are. And he's like, all right, I want to, redesign my room. And he was in the back seat, and for the first time in weeks, he was enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about, for this video world he lives in, there's this whole YouTube gamer people, and they all do their rooms with like neon lights, and they introduce themselves. I just kind of thought, interesting. And on the car ride back, just what you said, it just like yesterday, I looked over to my friend after we had gotten home, and I said, he's enthusiastic. Do you notice he's excited? He's motivated. And we started to talk like, what can we do with that? Well, this is bringing out creativity in him to do his room. He's presenting himself, like that kind of stuff. And we started to see the opportunity, and it all turned around. Whereas we were before just kind of worrying and trying to save him, to he's fine. He's enthusiastic. Why can't we be as well?
Right.
So I could totally relate to what you were saying, and I just had an aha moment that had happened to us yesterday without our even knowing it.
Exactly. And it's funny because they have enthusiasm, and they have interests, and they have passion. It's just not the things that we think, like doesn't involve going outside or socializing with people face to face, but it's in there. Once you get interested, then you can, all of a sudden your appreciation for them goes up, and that's where you're onto something. When all of a sudden you can be enthusiastic about them such as they are, just like you can be enthusiastic about your life such as they are. So it's more of a parent problem than a kid problem. Not that the parents can't look to draw that out, but it's the parents have to start by finding their own enthusiasm. You can't just install it in them.
Yeah.
So that's funny. That just happened with good timing.
It just happened yesterday. And while you were talking, I was noticing, how much judgment we were putting on things.
Yeah.
Also like our values of fresh air and movement and healthy, and it's just like, no, but where's real health coming from? He's in a healthy, joyful place when he's in that space where he's feeling creative and participating in that
Well, it doesn't
world.
help when you have research that backs up why you're not enthusiastic about their value systems. It does. Then you're like, well, I don't have to be enthusiastic because their value systems are wrong. There's some research about fresh air and going outside. So you really have to dig deep and say, no, exactly as they are without them changing. Let me love them and enjoy them and see their strengths and their assets, because I know I'm missing them. That's where the goods are. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because a lot of parents agree with you and it stops them. They get stuck, their record skips on limitation. It's really easy to do. I've done it myself. I've done it for a few years at a time. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I just made up something about my kid and I'm holding it against them and blaming them for it. So it's kind of embarrassing. But that's a moment where you wake up and you see, oh my God, I've been the one in the way. That's cool.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Erika.
For having me. Yeah, and inviting me. This has been really nice. And good luck with the rest of the series.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll take us out, okay, Lynn? So for all of you guys who are listening, thank you for your attention today, and there'll be some more interviews coming your way. You'll just look for the link under this video to see where you can find other videos of this kind, where we're talking about why we're built for this, whatever this is in life. So see you there. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.